Hello, welcome to the Breck Buzz. Show is going to be telling you all about what's been happening last month in the town of Breckenridge with our local government. I got two wonderful guests with me today, Elisabeth Warrens, councilwoman, and Gary Gallagher, councilman. And they're both going to help me fill you in on a lot of stuff that's been going on. Very exciting month for us. And we're going to kick it right off with Elisabeth telling you a little bit about Pinewood 2.
Yes. So if you drive down Airport Road, you are going to see it's going to look really different. A bunch of trees are gone. They have started construction, and this is our new affordable housing rental unit for about 60% AMI.
Exactly.
Studios and 1 bedrooms, and they have started that construction. It is amazing how different it looks, but that will be 45 units. We hope to have those open, I would say fall of next year, 2016 at the latest. It's moving right along, so we're just gonna hope for good weather so construction can keep going. So really a great project. And in fact, about a month ago, I received a phone call from an owner of a day spa saying, I really need some housing for my employees, and where can we tell these people to go? So we have a need for this, especially this type of unit. Studio, 1 bedroom for our workforce.
And the timing couldn't be better because of a lot of rental needs right now.
So many rental needs. You know, with people going to VRBO, Airbnb, Craigslist, things like that to rent out their condos and houses for short-term rentals, we're really losing that availability on long-term rentals for our workforce. So it's really a timely project. Great units, really energy efficient. We are doing these a little bit differently with some tax credits. Gary, our finance genius over here, can talk about that, but we've just recently signed the papers and have got started on that. Yeah,
kind of a unique program. It really helps with the funding the project.
Yeah, it really does, because it takes advantage of some economic benefits that the town of Breckenridge cannot take advantage of because we're not a taxpayer. And so at the end of the day, we're talking about a $10 million project. And these low-income housing tax credits will provide $4 million toward that $10 million cost. And again, we're giving up benefits that we couldn't use ourselves, so it's very, very efficient for us. Others are saying, let's expand the ice skating rink, not just put a roof over the outdoor rink, but let's really renovate and expand the existing ice skating rink. And of course, and then staff had a few suggestions, and they're saying, boy, we're dying, we need some more office space, and we need to do something about the elevator. And so you've got all these thoughts and ideas, and boy, if you were to total them all up, I mean, the price tag would be astronomical. So this is probably one of the 4 big areas that council will be tackling on May 12th in the spring retreat in terms of trying to get our hands around do we want to do something with respect to the rec center or recreational facilities here in town? And if so, where are the highest priorities?
Right. And then how do you find money to do it?
Well, that's the next case, is then you'd have to figure out exactly what it's going to cost and where does the money come from. And it also, there's some other areas that we will be addressing as well, parking and transit, which will have the same issues. What we would like to do, okay, what's it going to cost and where's the money going to come from in order to do it? So it's going to be a very robust spring retreat as we tackle several very large capital project ideas.
Right. Knowing the laundry list was fairly long, one of the things that came out was that we have a pretty good rec center and recreational facility.
We do have a rec center that's great. It's just asking, will it be sufficient in 10 years? The answer to that is probably not. But how do we prioritize that? Do we really want to be putting those capital funds into that up front? When, like Gary said, we have some other capital needs, especially when it comes to parking and transit that we're going to talk about, maybe some possible Riverwalk Center things. And you just have to balance that out with what does the rec center need. I did appreciate the comments from the community that came out. Overwhelmingly, there were a lot of comments, oh, we need an outdoor swimming pool. I appreciate that people said that, but realistically, that's not a necessity nor a need. And you know, while I'm elected, I don't know that I could get behind that because it's not a necessity to our town, and that's where we really have to prioritize. What do we need to make the rec center functional, efficient? And there are some things that need to be done for that, but And some added bonuses in there. If you look at it based upon the renovation costs per square foot, it does make sense to repurpose the outdoor tennis courts into a tennis facility and then redo the inside ones into more space. But again, that's a rather large price tag. So we're really going to have to look at the bigger picture of what all we want. So I've started making at least a little chart before we go into our retreat on Tuesday. This is kind of our overall money that we have, and this is how much everything would cost. And you don't want that to get too low, you know, at the bottom dollar. And so thanks to your guidance. But so it's going to be good discussions. But our rec center staff has done a great job of facilitating these comments and the open houses and things like that.
Well, it's always good to hear, to find out what people are thinking.
Yeah, it is good to hear. And we have a really diverse community, and that's what we have learned from this, that there's diverse needs at the rec center based upon all the different types of people that use them.
Yeah. Well, you both mentioned parking and transit. Let's give them a quick update on that too, because that is going to be one of the biggest topics at the retreat. But you've been hearing updates through the last couple of meetings. The last one was kind of pulling the final input from your task force, and also a little bit about the employee surveys that were out there.
Yep. So Shannon, our police chief, has done a wonderful job with this task force and leading these meetings, and they have done a good job of looking at realistically what's happening in parking. And paid parking makes sense. John Warner has got us all on board with the high cost of free parking and been sending us podcasts and articles and things like that, which is really helpful. And what we're trying to accomplish here is to free up some of that downtown parking. We do not want our skier parking to be down on Main Street. We do not want skier parking to be on Ridge Street, you know, and figuring out the best way to go about that, while also taking care of our employees that need to be at work and figuring out where to park them. And that task force got really in depth, figuring out how many employees were parked downtown that used a parking permit at any given time. It was around 360 employees, I think, that were actually parked using a legal parking permit. That's not including the employees that would park in a 3-hour spot and move their car every few hours. So parking transit, again, big discussion. I know my weekend will be poring over those notes over and over and trying to decide what we need to do. All signs are pointing to a garage on F-Lot would be valuable and worth doing. It's just the cost and how do we want to get there.
This is one of your biggest goals that you guys set for this year, to try to figure this out and have a plan going forward. Maybe not everything done on day one, but certainly having a good, solid plan with the community hopefully buying into it eventually.
Yeah. Now, I remember that when I came on council, it goes back about 3 years, actually Ben Brewer, Wendy Wolf, and myself came on council, and one of the things that we heard loud and clear while we were campaigning was, gee, parking and transit. I mean, those two concepts are really joined at the hip. You really can't address one without the other. And finally, I would say, you know, in the last 6 months, a lot of folks have rolled up their sleeves to finally say, okay, we're going to really look at this real hard and try to come up with some improvements. I don't think there's solutions out there that will address it 100%, but there are things that can be done, and perhaps incrementally, that should go a long way or could go a long way in really addressing the goal that we set out, which was, enclosed, convenient parking for our customers. And customers are defined as both guests as well as locals. And then we had some other, I call them ancillary goals, such as we really want to reduce, cars just circling in the downtown area looking for spaces. Traffic congestion, we want to be sure we're coordinating with the ski resort with respect to their bus system. And at the end of the day, we've got to let our folks know where there is parking, and so we really got to get a lot better on our wayfinding as well as using technology. And so at the last council meeting, all of these areas were reviewed with us that Elisabeth has just shared with us, everything from paid parking to employee parking, both in town as well as intercept lots, parking structures, as well as possibly public and private partnerships, using church parking lots during the week, using school parking lots in the evening and during school breaks, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we've asked our staff to do, led by Shannon Haynes, our police chief, is come to the retreat and show us how we could put some of those options together. There's no way we're going out day one doing everything. No. but which options can we kind of put together to really give a good test to and see just what it does. And we recognize that we're not going to solve the problem day one, and we're going to see some things that work, and we'll continue to make them better, and then some things may not work the way we expect them to, and we'll have to make some changes. But again, it'll come right back ultimately to whatever we decide. We put a cost on it, and we say, okay, here's what it's going to cost. We've got a lot of other things. Here's what they're going to cost. Are there some things that, can we find some sustainable revenue streams for any of these capital projects that can actually really support that particular capital project? That would certainly go a long, long way. And I think those are the kind of things that all of us on council, as well as senior staff, will be discussing come May.
Great. It's going to be a good topic. It's going to probably draw a few folks there too, I would imagine.
Possibly. It's really a culture change, what it is. I was reading through some of that. I'm like, wow, okay, paid parking would work like this, and it's changing the mindset, and like Gary said, there's going to be some things that might not work and some things that will, and it will be some trial and error.
Good.
Well, I thought it was interesting, the recent employee survey, what did they say, more than half of the employees said, I have no interest being at an intercept lot, either out there on the north end of town and having to take the bus, and then some said, well, I might do it if you incentivize me.
Oh boy.
Coffee, donuts, free gift cards, and things of that nature. So who knows what's really going to work or not work at the end of the day? Yeah. We're just going to have to take a good, educated guess.
Well, being a successful resort, it's probably the biggest challenge, is that whole congestion, transportation. How do you, and interestingly, if you visit other resorts, we are actually lucky that we have so much parking.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Right.
When you go to other places, they're not, the Crested Buttes of the world and the Tellurides of the world and those type of folks. Anyway, it's going to be a great conversation. And another one, well, you guys going to have a loaded day.
Yeah, I guess am I going to be guessing cultural arts coming next?
Yeah, well, speaking of free things, no, I'm just kidding. Another good conversation, one that we kind of expected would happen now that we've formed our new Breckenridge Creative Arts organization, and they're now managing facilities. And the council still has a role with deciding who gets what and how much does it cost people to do it. And it's been a big conversation. Good work by the BCA to kind of analyze it, get it in front of council, and now the council's got the tough choice of how do you manage it. What's that all about, Gary?
Well, I guess what it's all about, it started back in January 2014 when we hired a gentleman by the name of Rob Wolf from Ann Arbor, Michigan, to basically come in and be our president and CEO of our new non-for-profit cultural arts organization. And the idea was we wanted to have a cultural arts organization with an independent board to really look hard at the portfolio of venues that the town owns. Everything from the Riverwalk Center to the Arts District to the Speakeasy Theater to the Breckenridge Theater, as well as animating and what's going on the streets, throughout the course of the year. Previously, that had been pretty much done with town employees, who not only had those responsibilities, but also had a lot of other responsibilities within the town itself. And we realized that once having made the commitment about 2 years ago to really accelerate a lot of this build out for our Arts District and our Community Center and the old Masonic Hall, and we're getting ready to drop over $2 million into the Breckenridge Theater to prepare it for the Backstage Theater and other things that we're doing, we realized, well, it's great to build these things, but boy, you really want to make sure you're up and going, have it programmed, you're marketing it, you're promoting it when these facilities are ready to go. So we established this Breck Creative Arts Organization, and one of the first things that we asked them to do was, how do you price the use of the facility? How do you price the use of the services that are provided as well as the equipment usage? Not so much that, we were not looking to basically put the financial burden on the backs of our non-for-profits, but rather we really wanted to understand what was the value that the town was providing to these organizations that use these facilities, as well as making sure that these users understood just what the town was doing for them. So it really was more of an accounting and sort of a business thought. And so we asked the BCA board and Rob to go out, and they did a benchmarking study. They evaluated, 12, 15 other performing arts facilities similar to the Riverwalk Center in the Colorado area, to try to come up with what would be the appropriate rates for rental, equipment usage, the services provided, whether you're a commercial user or a non-for-profit user. And they came up with a matrix, a schedule. And I think, from the council's point of view, I think we either have or are prepared to accept that. They're the experts. They went out and pretty much put those numbers together. But the real issue, and the most important one, is not really what these numbers are or what these rates are. It's for council to develop a policy, which we really haven't done in the past. It's been more of an art in the past, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit more of a science going forward, where we really understand what the needs are for these non-for-profits. Are they mission aligned with the town? Are they not mission aligned? Just what are they doing in terms of the benefits for the Upper Blue? And we may have to tier the type of users that use our facilities. That's a possibility. Or we may just look at non-for-profits in a rather similar fashion, feeling that they are as important to our community, and they are, as those that are actually putting on events, putting on concerts and things of that nature, that it all goes to making the Upper Blue as strong as it is. Attracting not only our guests, but also making it very livable for those folks that are living here in the community, so that they can take advantage of all these wonderful events and activities. And so I think the big question for council, and again, we will start to wrangle with it on May 12th, as one of our other big issues, is, okay, what is the policy we all feel comfortable with in terms of supporting our non-for-profits? And how much does the town feel comfortable in underwriting the cost of using the facility, using the equipment, using the services, so on and so forth? In the past, the town has been very generous to our non-for-profits. I don't see that changing at all. But again, I think it's important, because we have both a cash and an in-kind granting process, where people who use our facilities, the non-for-profits, they can come in and they can ask for, can you waive the rent? Can you waive this? Can you waive that? We're really doing a fundraiser. We need the money, blah, 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 blah. And in the past, 2 council members have served on those committees. And I think made a lot of decisions based upon what the history had been. And I think going forward, what we'd like to do now that we have this BCA organization, it's getting more expensive, we're having more not-for-profits actually coming in and requesting assistance and help, that we need to formalize it a little bit more. And this is going to go toward helping to formalize that process, so that whoever ultimately makes these decisions, whether it's a couple individuals, whether it's a group, they sort of understand what the policy and the philosophy is, and within which to make those kind of decisions, as opposed to something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And again, it'll be the first time that we have to tackle this, and I'm sure there's going to be 7 different points of view a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, everyone feels we want to support our non-for-profits. We're not looking to make our budget on their backs, and really what makes sense and is workable for everybody. But realizing at the same time, the town has poured a lot of money into these facilities, and so where do we really want to end up? It's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, maybe people don't realize how many things we provide, mm-hmm. and it's just not cultural. It's also Carter Park, it's the rec center, it's all those type of things, and there are a lot of non-for-profits in this community that come to us with looking for support. Right.
I would say 95% of the Riverwalk uses are nonprofits. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably pretty close. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or maybe a little more than that. So really strong, and it does cost money to run these things. And now BCA has employees, and we have nice equipment in there that we do not want volunteers running. We want it to be professionally done. There is a cost to that. So it's really a question for the council of how do we want to subsidize that? Fully, partly, and that's part of the conversation that we'll have. Of course, coming from the nonprofit world, I know what a lot of these nonprofits make on these fundraising events that they mm-hmm. use our facilities for, and in no way do I want to penalize them. But on the other hand, I want us to really look and make sure that our facilities are being used in the best way possible. Especially the Riverwalk Center, as it's getting more popular. There's some days that are totally booked, and we want to make sure that it's a good use of our facility. And there's also other benefits to having these type of events there. We see people come in and eat in our restaurants and visit our town and things like that. So it's really looking at the overall picture of what's going to be in there. And additionally, we're going to have some new venues, especially Old Masonic Hall. I have no doubt that will want to be used a lot. And it's figuring out this pricing structure that isn't going to jeopardize the future of the BCA, but then also won't jeopardize our nonprofits, you know. So big discussion.
Always an important balance. And that kind of wraps up what we were talking about with the pricing. We'll be right back for some more updates with the other activities that the council's been working on after this quick break. You're on Breck Buzz. Hello, welcome back to Breck Buzz. And again, my guests are Elisabeth Lawrence and Gary Gallagher. We've been talking about some big topics that the council's going to be chatting about at their retreat that they have been working on over the last month. We were just talking about the pricing of facilities as a whole. And I think the word balance, it was probably the word that came out in my mind as you were talking about how do you balance between, you know, do you have enough money to fund everything? And on the other side, how do you make sure that we support the organizations that really make this community unique? And that's what the council is going to be wrestling with. So it's going to be a very interesting debate. I envy your full day coming up.
Hopefully a discussion, not a debate.
Yeah, a discussion.
It will be. Always is.
Yeah.
While we're talking about funding, why don't we jump right to the marketing fund? Because there was another request for money to the council. Gary, maybe you want to give kind of an overview of how we approach marketing. We obviously had a ballot question a few years ago that increased marketing dollars, but then the town has actually provided additional funding over the last 4 years or so for that organization, our Breck Tourism Office.
Yeah. As the definition of a marketing fund implies, this is a fund which receives revenue from a variety of sources in order to support our marketing efforts in the town of Breckenridge. In terms of where the money comes from the accommodations or lodging tax. Some comes from a bit of sales tax, some comes from our BOLT licenses, which is our business occupational license tax. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth component that makes up our revenues is what the town from their normal treasury or their general treasury sees fit to add to the overall sources of revenues toward marketing. The majority of our marketing dollars goes to which is now known as our Breck Tourism Office, which is our direct marketing organization. This is a group that was spun out several years ago into its own independent non-for-profit in order to brand and market the town. Prior to that, again, it had been done sort of within the town government, and the need was seen to let's get it outside of town government, let's put it in the hands of professionals who understand this business and do it 24/7, 365 days a year. And I think that was a great decision because I think we've seen a lot of great benefits, you know, come from that. In order to provide the revenues for our marketing fund, Tim, as you alluded to, you know, back some years ago there was a ballot initiative that increased the lodging tax from 2.4% of total sales to 3.4%, with that difference, that 1%, being totally allocated toward the marketing fund. In addition, in order to really jumpstart the fund, there was a gentleman's agreement between the town and those who are very interested in the marketing, our lodgers, our retailers, our restaurateurs, wanted to be sure there was plenty of money that the town had to market. So in order to get that ballot initiative passed, we had a gentleman's agreement that we would also take another half of 1% for the next 5 years. So that was starting in 2011, it sunsets at the end of 2015. And those monies, and that adds up to about roughly $650,000, what we're budgeting for this year in 2015, mm-hmm. that also gets added to the marketing fund. But because it sunsets at the end of the year, the discussion that council will have is, do we in effect make it permanent or set a new sort of reset or sunset period out several years. I think because we've seen, I think all of our feelings are that the money has been well used. What we spend in marketing is a lot less than a lot of other mountain resort community competitors spend. And so I would be comfortable, and we'll see where the rest of council is, in I think we probably need to make that permanent. Because at the end of the day, this all adds up to about 3.8, what's called $4 million. And to think about getting rid of that could drop $600,000 to $700,000 from that marketing budget. And I think that would be very, very hurtful to the town. I think it would probably be short-sighted if we were to remove that monies from them. So that's the discussion we will be having. Needless to say, I think all of us on council have received phone calls from a good number of folks who have wanted to visit with us on this particular issue. Just like we've all have had conversations with people who feel strongly on certain rec center programs, and we've had
they wear white shoes.
And we've had a lot of conversations with people who represent the non-for-profit community who are really interested in what the town is going to do with respect to helping the non-for-profits in the use of our facility. So, I guess as a public official, you get to know and meet a lot of people, and everybody expresses themselves. But this will be another item. I think this will be an easy item, though.
I think it'll be an easy item as well. I think that since Lucy Kay has taken the helm of the BTO office, we're seeing great things happening there. And one thing, marketing always seems a little abstract. And because it's sometimes hard to measure that. What we've asked for is some measurement, and we're starting to see that, and they're getting that research. And a lot of that is that ROI, the return on investment dollar. You know, if we spend X amount in $1 in marketing, how will that come back to our town in various scenarios through our restaurants, through our retail, lodging, etc. And so those are things to look at. I do want us to be careful that we're not going to wipe away some of this marketing budget too soon, only because I feel like Breckenridge is at a place where it's really good momentum, and we have more to showcase than just the ski area, especially with our new arts district and historical things and so many other things we have going on. I feel like this is just kind of a point in our marketing that we have a lot to offer, and I would hate to lose momentum on that and really want to carry that through the next few years. But on the other hand, when you look at some of these capital needs, it's a question, you know, for sure. But I think I side with Gary on this. I think this is a time to continue to put the money in marketing, especially in terms of bad snow years, etc. We're also looking at marketing to a different type of customer to come to Breckenridge, those international customers and the destination visitor that's going to stay more than one night or maybe not stay at all, you know, that's really going to be here and spending money in our town.
Well, you just heard a pretty good compilation of the biggest topics the council is going to be wrestling with, and all the dollars that are involved with that. So it's you can get a good feel for the demands that the council has in terms of allocating money and hoping they have enough to do all the things that they want to do. So we'll see how it goes at the
Well, Tim, we'll be looking to you just to see just how much money is in the wallet.
Yeah, the magic.
The magic, you know.
Old Dad over here, he's going to tell us we're spending too much.
Yeah, that allowance is getting, tougher and tougher. Anyway, while we were talking about money, one of the things the council did make a kind of a short-term decision, not a short-term, I shouldn't say short-term. It actually was a component of the parking and transit when you think about it. But it was about kind of a employee route of our transit system, which, because of some other changes that occurred, we were actually going to not do that service this summer. So we call it the black route. Yep,
the black route. And I think it is a maybe short-term decision, because we made a decision to spend some money. And how that came about was some citizens got together and said, hey, do you realize that the bus that goes up Peak 8 will not be running for a certain period of time. And we were going to be dependent somewhat on a bus that the ski resort ran. And lots of different things. It turns out we do have locals that live there. Lots of our workforce live up that area. And we started getting emails and phone calls and lots of Facebook messages and the sort of, you know, I just got off work and now I'm at City Market and I'm going to have to carry my groceries up Ski Hill Road. And we looked at that and thought, let's revisit this. And so our Public Works department offered us some different scenarios, 3 different ones. We could continue to have the black route be cut. We could mix it in a little bit, and that would be about $80,000. Or we could add a third bus. And the third bus would reinstate the black route up Peak 8. In addition, it would be able to offer service to the new community center. Well, that option was going to be about $120,000. And it was really a pretty short discussion. We thought, well, we are asking people not to park in town, not to be moving their cars, not to be driving around as much, but yet we take away a bus. And so we're going to step out on a limb here and spend this money and for the summer season, and hope that people are really going to use it like they said they were in those emails. But we do have lots of condo complexes and lodges up there, and their visitors use it. They tell their visitors, you don't need a car, you'd be able to use this bus. So it kind of, we have to put our money where our mouth is, that we don't want people driving around as much to free up some parking, and we want you to use our bus system. Well, we're going to bring that bus back.
Sure. This is more of an operating cost as opposed to a one-time cost, so it is a different scenario as the council thinks about how to fund things in the future.
Yeah, I think anytime we think about funding any of these capital projects, it's not just the initial cost, it's also the ongoing annual cost, and you have to obviously take a look at both pieces. And I think, you know, the other thing that, with respect to the black route, was it didn't make sense to disadvantage a particular neighborhood. Right. When buses are running everywhere else in town, all of a sudden you single a particular neighborhood out. And, you know, it runs, like I said, as Elisabeth said, it runs, you know, the community center, it runs up and down Ski Hill Road all the way over to Peak 7 as well as Peak 8. And with the gondola not running in the evenings, as an example, particularly in the summer when you have a lot of visitation in the, you know, the lodges and the timeshares and things of that nature, you want people coming down into town, and if the gondola is not going to bring them downtown and take them back home, you darn well better have something that's going to do that, or you're going to lose some sales on Main Street. So for all those reasons, it was an easy one. As Elisabeth said, it was a quick decision. We made it, we moved on.
Yeah, and I think we're proud of making that decision. For sure. I mean, it was one we all felt really good about. We didn't go home later that night and think, oh.
Why did I do that? Yeah. An exciting program that we got a little report on is what they call the Energy Smart program, which the town has been very active in helping HC3 promote some energy stuff in town, both business and residential. So that sounded like good news. Yeah,
it was very good news. I think we got like a state of the energy report, and what it's showing is that every year more businesses as well as residential owners are taking advantage of these audits. They're heavily subsidized, where a team goes in, a professional team that goes in and understands, you know, where you can save energy and makes specific recommendations. And not everybody basically picks up on that and goes forward with it. Some of it might be a pricing issue, but some of the less expensive, easier things to do, I think people are jumping on that. And again, it's a program that you're going to really have to go out many, many years and then look back, I think, to see just how much one has accomplished, as opposed to in any one year. But as long as you see the line trending upward, then I think it's something that, you know, it complies with one of the town's goals in terms of being more sustainable, energy efficient, and we're making progress in those areas. And Town of Breck contributes some money to the High Country Conservation Center in order to be able to do this. Right. So we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is.
Yep.
And, leveraging other investments. Right?
Yep, and really want to see this succeed.
Yep.
So.
Had quite a few businesses that actually achieved quite the substantial gains.
Yes, businesses seem to follow through with it a little more than homeowners, and have seen the benefit of that. What's really impressive, though, that's going to change this year for the program. Last year they saw a lot of people were getting these energy audits done. You might not know, if you have a deed-restricted home in Breckenridge, you can get a free energy audit. There's lots of great perks to this, but people weren't actually following through with it. Right. So this year they have decided to up it $400 up to 50% maximum of doing some of these costs. Number one being insulating crawl spaces is the number one thing they found in their audits last year that could help on energy savings. And it's really a great partnership with High Country Conservation Center, and it goes on to prove Town of Breckenridge is committed towards energy savings, the environment, and really doing it not only in our own buildings but encouraging our residents as well.
And as one individual that's taken advantage of the audit and had some work done, it has made a difference in my bill.
Has it?
It has.
Oh, great.
And it was exactly those, the crawl space, the original houses in Wellington.
Yep.
Where they're just on dredge rock. So
I imagine I'm about to learn that as well.
Well, fortunately, the newer homes are a little bit better done. Speaking of Wellington,
yes.
I got to cut it right. Lincoln Park at Wellington,
yes.
which is actually the last phases of the Wellington neighborhood, which, in case people forget, is a partnership between the town and a developer to provide a lot of affordable housing, but also some market housing. Mm-hmm. And we were dealing with kind of the final approval of the last phases. And the council had to really wrestle with transit routes and what should the developer be doing, those type of, and when. What was that all about? And actually, you walked away kind of smiling at that one too, if I remember correctly.
Well, for this particular council, I believe besides John Warner, no one had been through a call-up. I think this was the first call-up for this council.
That's
so
right.
What that was is our planning department had approved it. And to give some context, that had been going on for 2 years at least, year and a half.
At least a year and a half.
Yeah, at least a year and a half with the developer working with our planning department and going before our planning commission to try to decide this. It has had many different iterations. At one point, the existing Wellington neighborhood was going to connect 2 or 3 different streets with the new side. The planning department and working with the developer finally got that down to connecting it just via one street and then some pedestrian bridges in 2 other places. And the neighborhood, the existing neighborhood, really stepped out there and got involved and contacted people, etc. So town council needed to decide if they wanted to call up the planning commission decision. Originally, myself and Ben Brewer had asked for recusal in that particular situation because both Ben and I were looking at purchasing homes in the new part of Lincoln Park. And then it went on later and things had changed, and Ben ended up being recused on the second round where we actually did a call-up. I was a part of that. Mark was absent, so he was not able to be, so it's just 5 of us. And we did go through our first call-up together, and it is a strict process. We did give everyone the opportunity to speak from within the neighborhood that wanted to, and that took a long time. I believe 2.5 hours
Yep.
around that, so to get through that. But what the call-up was actually about was not so much what they were doing, but the phasing of what they were going to do. And essentially we looked at transit, and do you want a bus running through a neighborhood that would be going towards a neighborhood that wasn't quite built or finished yet? And so some residents were calling that the bus to nowhere. And we looked at that a lot. This park that was originally supposed to be in the first section, we did discuss that. So what had happened is council worked with the developer after the call-up to ask them to change the phasing of how this development was going to be done. So it looks like this summer they will start those. It's going to start phase 1 will be 80% triplexes, that 80% AMI. I believe 15 of those.
15 or 16, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it'd have to be 15 because
Yeah,
they're
probably 15
triplexes.
for
Yes.
triplexes, right.
Well, I thought it was
Very
16
good.
too because I had
Where's
read
my
that somewhere.
calculator? No.
Well, and I'm not even a math geek, but I did find that. So triplexes and a few single family home and duplexes in that phase 1. So we changed the phasing. We still do not have an answer on the transit. That is something we're hoping our planning department will work with residents on and the developer to really get some direction. We want transit out there, but does it make sense to have one of our large buses going through a neighborhood with narrow streets where there's kids playing and various other things? And so that's going to be tasked the next couple years at figuring that out. But I feel confident we're going to come to an appropriate solution.
Couldn't have summarized it better.
No.
Unless you have something to add.
No, I think Elisabeth hit the nail on the head. It really had to do with the phasing.
in figuring out what
delay the bridge and Bridge Street and accelerate the Memorial Park. What is it? Vern Johnson Memorial Park.
Who is Vern Johnson?
Vern is the neighbor across the street.
Oh, wonderful.
Who actually was his property is a little bit involved because of the Gold Run Road there. So, yeah.
No, as Elisabeth said, it was the first call up that I had experienced, and call up basically says you start from scratch. You basically throw out everything the Planning Commission decided, and you listen to both sides. You now become the court, and staff made the presentation, developer made the presentation, everybody could challenge one another, and then everybody in the audience who had a position either for or against the phasing that had been approved could speak. So yeah, 2.5, 3 hours, and it was just like you were sitting there like the Supreme Court, and then ultimately rendering a decision.
Minus robes and wigs.
Yeah, I was going to say we have to buy robes next time.
Robes and wigs, and I think at the end of the day, I think we in the town could kind of live with a delay on, let's call it the bus running through nothing. Give them the park, which had been promised years and years ago by the developer. So that was a big thorn in the side of a lot of the homeowners, and I think rightfully so. And so I think at the end of the day, it was a win-win. It was something the developer could proceed with and not just make his cost unreasonable. And because at the end of the day, what we need to do is get those houses built. Right. And so the longer we delay and make it difficult for the developer, and he sees his costs going up, well, then he's got to find other ways to delay and come back and negotiate, and the time was just to get going. So I think at the end of the day, good decision. Everybody was happy.
We're getting close to the end of wrapping up, but we always try to hit a little bit of financials, and this is a good time because it's the first quarter of the year, and you're going to be hitting your retreat. But numbers don't look too bad this year.
The numbers look very, very good. I mean, I think in the last year or so, what we have seen is that our revenue sources, principally sales tax and real estate transfer taxes and accommodation taxes, they're trending above budget for the year. They're generally trending ahead of last year for the most part. So I think from a financial point of view, we're in excellent shape. But I think for the first time, as you've pointed out to us, Tim, a couple of years ago, we had the luxury of some very large fund balances that had not been, let's call it, pre-allocated. Either allocated because legally you were required to do so, or that council basically were setting up these funds, for child care, for housing, for the water, for the golf course, things of that nature. But we had a very large, I'll call it, unrestricted fund balance. And we have spent quite heavily over the last couple of years. A lot of these areas that we've already shared with our viewers in previous meetings. And although we still have some healthy fund balances, they're not as large as they had been just 12 months ago or 18 months ago. So what that says is that we've got to, again, comes back to what we were saying earlier in the program, we've got some very hard decisions to make. As Elisabeth said, we need to prioritize what's really important. What do we need to do now? What haven't we done? We've continued to put off over the years. Perhaps now we have to address it. And I think at the end of the day, we always have to keep thinking about, what's in the long-term best interest of the majority of the people. And so there's a lot of projects out there that I would call them smaller groups would love to see, but is that really where we should be spending our money today as we are getting narrower in terms of what our fund balance parameters look like? And that will be the big conversation.
Yeah. And as Gary alludes, we were able to do all this with cash.
Yes.
This next few years could be a little bit more challenging in terms of those big projects.
Absolutely. And we'll have to look carefully, at bonds and financing and things like that. So we've been very lucky in our community that we have been able to pay cash for so many nice amenities. So, but things are still strong financially within the town of Breckenridge, and we've done a good job of managing that.
Good. Let's wrap up a little bit with spring construction. It's happening. It's all over the place, and this is our time to try to get stuff done. What are some of the things that people are experiencing out there.
It's not just us. Town of Frisco's been doing a lot too. Whenever I'm down there, they have a lot going on as well. But this is the time. So let's see, we're working on finishing our roundabout at Park Avenue and Highway 9 or Main Street, kind of that area. So we're working on that, finishing it. And that goes into our median projects that we had started last year. What we're going to see is the irrigation is being done, landscaping. We're going to install some banner poles and flags and that sort of stuff. That's in the section closest to town. And then we're going out even further and doing that strip between Valley Brook and Coin Valley. We're going to get that done as well. So those are median roundabout projects that do shut down a lane, but it will look so nice when it's done. And we'd elected last year to choose to finish those projects this year instead of dragging it out any further. Over on North Ridge in the corner of French, kind of right there, we're replacing a water main, and that's closed down for a little bit. And then here pretty soon we're gonna start doing some repaving and concrete work and all that sort of stuff. So lots going on. Now the ice rink parking lot we're not going to do until later in the summer. So that is one of our construction projects, but it'll be starting later.
Yeah, we got to relocate the pump track first.
Yeah, we're going to relocate the pump track up to Stilson Placer, which is off Wellington Stables Road, for people that don't know where that is. So, but big projects, you know, what it really comes down to is there's not enough concrete contractors out there, huh? I think we've tasked all our people that we hire for that. So they are working hard out there.
And we're still wrapping up Masonic Hall and some work
Masonic
over there.
Hall, we're going to hopefully get started in June on the Breckenridge Theater, which is where our Breckenridge Theater Company basically performs. We've got the park on the north end of town, what we call Prospector Park.
Right. Yep.
And so we're doing landscaping now, and hopefully all these projects that Elisabeth mentioned and we've just mentioned are all scheduled by July 4th. Prospector Park, there's going to be a big $100,000 Tom's Baby bronze statue, which will be coming in the fall. But the park will be usable as of the 4th of July. We're doing some landscaping at the community center. And yeah, and just when staff thinks that they'll have completed all of this and they'll take that one big breath and sigh, hopefully council will say, okay, we've just identified these additional capital projects that we want to start rolling out. And we're also doing some design and engineering on the Blue River.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that we hope we can get our permits this year and possibly get a start on restoring the Blue River.
And you may want to mention the water plant, since we haven't mentioned that in quite a couple of months, since we've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work, Gary.
Yeah. Yes. The town, basically made a decision that we needed a second water plant. Not only to back up our current plant, which was built back in 1976. Obviously, it's had a lot of upgrades. It's in great condition, but unlike some other communities, we cannot tap into another community's water if something were to happen to our water. For instance, Dillon and Silverthorne, if one of them has a problem, they can open the tap from their town and provide the other one on an emergency basis. We do not have that luxury. And we also, we draw our water from the Tarn, which is on the south end of town. A lot of trees around that area. If we ever had a big wildfire, we could find that Tarn could really fill up with a lot of ash and soot and debris very, very quickly. And our current water plant cannot handle that water with that kind of filth and sediment contained within it. So in terms of redundancy, in terms of any natural calamity, we decided that we really needed a second water plant. And the phase that we've been going through this last year really is to resolve any conflicts that we have with objectors. Anytime you file a water plan to take water from a river, everybody who has a position in that stream, in that river, the headwaters, or whatever, has the opportunity to say, whoa, wait a minute, I don't like what you're doing. And so automatically, we must have had 10 or 12 objectors, which is not unusual. And staff and our legal fellows have been, for the last year, have been working through removing objections so that folks basically drop their objections. And we've made a lot of progress, and we're down to perhaps one, maybe two at this particular point. Hopefully we'll get that resolved in the next month or two, and we can start some design and engineering. You know, the plan will take 3 or 4 years from when we really get started with design and engineering to really bring online. So even if we started the plant today, we're talking, you know, the plant's not going to come online to, you know, the late, you know, 2018, 2019, and so on and so forth. So a lot of work's been going on. Unfortunately, it's a very, very slow process, but I think we've been very careful about where we wish to take our water from down by the Swan Mountain Bridge, so as not to affect other users, such as the Water Board, who's very interested in in-stream flows. They're a big Denver entity with whom we've had to deal. The Sanitation District, the county, everybody's got a position, and we think that we have located this in such a way as to respect their rights and respect the needs that they have in terms of sufficient and adequate water. Because the goal at the end of the day is make sure we all have enough sufficient quality and quantity of water to see us through the Upper Blue build-out. Because, you know, just because we have enough water to put into people's homes, if the sanitation district can't deal with it coming out of the home, you're going to basically you know, affect your economic development, and vice versa. So we're all in the same place, and as we've told our partners here in the county, and we've taken the lead on this because obviously it's our project, you know, we've pretty much said, look, root for us, because our success in removing all these objectors is your success as well. Right. And so we're close. We're in what they call the red zone. We just need to push it over the goal line now.
So even though we haven't talked about it much, I didn't want people to forget we're still working hard at it.
Still working on water. One other thing reminded me, McCain, is last week at our meeting we approved the plans for the recycling center.
That's right.
That the county presented to us, which will be on Coin Valley Road and part of the McCain property. So those plans look good. We're going forward. Hopefully we're going to see that work get started pretty soon. And just as a reminder, where that recycling center is on County Road 450, we're going to do a joint partnership with Summit County government for some affordable housing. So we're going to move that recycling center, have it much more updated, safe. You know, safety I think is a huge part of that. So
cleaner.
Yes.
Better landscaping.
Yeah, it's going to be nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. By the way, I want to mention that all of our projects are on the town website, and we have a Pardon Our Dust page where folks can check in to see the progress of the different projects that the town's working on. Also closures, lane closures, those type of things. So tune in, and you could certainly stay up to speed with how the progress will go over the next month, because we try to compress everything into a very short period of time to do all this work. And I'm just glad we're not downtown anymore on Main Street. I want to thank Elisabeth and Gary for joining me today. Great updates. And as you heard, we have next week, the 12th, is our retreat, all-day retreat that the council will be holding over at the community center. And the public's always invited to that. We'll also have, obviously, information about people that want to follow up and check that out. Our regular council meetings are on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays. And again, we tape those, and you can also listen to those live. We'd love to have you come to the meeting and listen in. Great dialogue starts at 3 for a work session, and 7:30 for evening meetings. So, any other questions, you know where to call us. We're at Town Hall. Again, thank you, Gary and Elisabeth, and good luck at the retreat on Tuesday. See you at the next Breck Buzz.